In this lecture, we'll be discussing problems with the use of punishment. Punishment tends to be heavily relied upon, particularly by parents, to change behavior, but there are several problems that can arise with the use of punishment. The first issue with using punishment is that punishing bad behavior does not directly strengthen good behavior. So when you're punishing bad behavior, you're teaching a child the behavior that you don't want to see. You're teaching them what you don't want them to do. But that does not directly teach them what you do want them to do. At the same time that you're punishing the bad behavior, you also have to teach or you'll have to reinforce the appropriate behavior, because punishing alone does not teach them how to interact or how to behave appropriately. Something else you also see sometimes with the use of punishment is a generalized suppression of other behaviors. Because when you punish, what you're really trying to do is not only suppress the inappropriate behavior, but you're trying to increase or strengthen appropriate behaviors. And instead of seeing that, instead of seeing certain behaviors decrease and other appropriate behaviors increase, sometimes you'll see an overall suppression of all behaviors. Let's say if every time you speak to your spouse, they're getting upset and you're not sure exactly how they want you to behave, you'll just say, every time I talk to you, you get upset, so I just won't talk to you at all. And you just suppress your behavior overall. For a child who's constantly getting in trouble, they are thinking, I don't know how my parent wants me to behave. Every time I do something, they get upset. So I'll just sit here, I'll be quiet, I won't do anything. They just suppress behavior in general, as opposed to discriminating between the behavior that is suppressed and the behavior that they show because it's appropriate behavior. With punishment, you also see that the person delivering the punishment can become a discriminative stimulus for punishment, so the unwanted behavior is suppressed only when that person is present. So with children or teenagers, as opposed to stopping the problem behavior, as opposed to just, not smoking cigarettes at all, they'll just hide that behavior. They'll suppress the behavior around a teacher or the parent or whoever is responsible for delivering the punishment. When that person is not around, they resume the behavior. With adults, if you get a ticket for speeding, you generally just stop speeding all the time. You'll speed when a cop is not around, but when a cop is around, you decrease the behavior, stop the behavior of speeding. So that person who does the punishment becomes a discriminative stimulus for punishment. The behavior stops only when they're around. And a step further, not only might you suppress the behavior when that person is around, the person who does the punishment, you can also take the additional step of avoiding the person who's doing the punishment. So that you can still continue to engage in that behavior that gets you punished, you avoid the person who's responsible for doling out punishment. Punishment also often leads to emotional responses. So the person being punished will become tearful, they'll become upset, they'll become very emotional as a result of being punished. Punishment can also sometimes lead to an aggressive reaction. So I'm sure at this point we're all familiar with the studies that say that children who are spanked or have physical punishment are more likely to be aggressive as adults and to be aggressive with peers than children who were not spanked. So sometimes punishment can lead to aggressive reactions in the person who is being punished. Punishment, through the process of modeling, can also teach the person that punishment is an acceptable means of controlling behavior. So when a child is punished and they learn that punishment is a way to control behavior, they can become more punishing toward their peers. And in adulthood, they can also use punishment to control their children's behavior. You see this with the cycle of, if you were spanked, you're more likely to grow up and spank your own children. Children who are abused during childhood can also grow up to become abusers. So because that behavior is being modeled for them, they go on to repeat the same types of behaviors. And because punishment does work in the short term, it is effective for immediately stopping unwanted behaviors. People can come to overly rely on punishment to the point that it becomes abusive. So because the punishment does work, it can become their primary way of controlling behavior. the punishment can escalate over time until it reaches the level of actually becoming abusive behavior.